Hello, and welcome to Film Vet, where we sort out the art of movies. I'm Kyle Wisdom.
I'm Trevor Rice, and today we're reviewing John Wick Part 2.
As a side note, this movie is rated R for several things. There's graphic violence throughout, obviously, because a lot of people die. Some of them you don't see alive because they get shot before they come on screen.
Yeah.
There's also some partial nudity in this movie, so please be careful about the people that you involve watching this film. We're not endorsing any of the movies that we review. We want to give you the tools to watch the movies that are best for you and for your family. And so this one definitely needs to have some consideration going in. This film is directed by Chad Stahelski, renowned for his work in a lot of stunt coordination, and that definitely showed in this film. So one of the really cool things about this film, and really its claim to fame, specifically coming out of the first film, is its ability to have extraordinary and realistic stunts. And the choreography of this is just absolutely great. We'll get to that in a second. Starring Keanu Reeves.
You're not going to recognize too many other faces, really.
Except for Lawrence Fishburne. He comes
in. Oh,
with
yeah.
A little Matrix reunion on
Yeah,
screen.
there's a Matrix reunion. I think in this movie he does a fantastic job. I think it's some of his better acting since The Matrix. Just because it is an action movie. And really, he's got a good track record of action movies. You know, Speed, you got The Matrix, and then a few others here and there. But John Wick, I think he just, for me, I think he did great. He didn't take away from anything for me.
Yeah, and John Wick Chapter 2 is about John Wick, an assassin of international fame, who has left the game. He's trying to retire, but he's pulled back in by one of his old contacts, who has a contract that he needs to fulfill. It's basically a blank check that John had to sign earlier in his career, and so he's pulled back into the world of international assassin work in this film, and we get to see him try to disentangle himself once again from that world. Which, one of the things that I think we both agree on is probably one of the strong points of this film, is its ability to kind of create this other world of assassins and the Continental Hotel.
Yeah. Real quick, if you haven't seen the first one, we definitely recommend going to see that first, because this one picks up right where the first one left off. I mean,
and overlaps a bit. You get to see him kind of tie up the loose ends of the first film and then enter into the story of the second.
Yeah, there's just this like world of acknowledgement between all these assassins. In this one, you see like it's kind of this like
the mechanics of that with the switchboard.
Yeah, the switchboard operators,
ladies.
Like these 50s hipsters, like
tattooed, but like wearing like 50s garb. And
it's
pretty cool.
It's pretty neat.
And the way the director really relies on some really classical action movie tropes at the beginning with the cool cars and introducing the character through the fear of his enemies was a really good way of kind of bringing anyone that maybe didn't know the story along into the world of this character and what he does. Really impressive about this film is its attention to detail when it comes to the firearms and the tactics that the characters use. All of the weapons that they use in the movie are high quality firearms in the real world. The tactics they use are true to life and actually would work. The ability that he has as an actor, and this is the only thing I love about Keanu Reeves, is that he can actually do all the things he does in this film.
Yeah.
And so that I have to give him props for that.
So Keanu Reeves is actually infamous for taking pay cuts to make a better film. And so one thing he did in this, just his dedication to this movie, is he spent his entire summer and then some, so 3 or 4 months to actually training on top of all the gun work and the fighting and stuff. It's just how stylistically and aesthetically pleasing this movie is. I really love the color palette and how great it was just to look at different things. I mean, everything felt like a different world, but also part of our world. So in a sense, it had this kind of superhero type vibe, almost like a comic book vibe, except they're kind of all bad guys. Nobody's really... Even John Wick's not like a good guy. He was an assassin before this.
Yeah. Best elements, I think, of this, I think we've already established. Production design, attention to detail.
Yep.
They don't rely on a lot of the shaky cam, a lot of the quick cut cheating that a lot of action movies do to try to make their movies look better than they really are. The choreography was center stage, and it was shown in all of its brilliance, and for that they have to be commended in this genre in particular.
Yeah, you can tell that it was a labor of love in that aspect. So most of the time when you see shaky cams or you see cuts in a scene, so if you see two characters fighting and it cuts from behind one and then behind the other, it's typically because they don't know what they're doing. So they're using the cuts and the shaky cam to hide a lot of that. But in this movie, the camera doesn't move unless it has to. So if you see John Wick and he's running up and he shoots a guy that's to the left, you can see that. And then if he turns to the right, then the camera pans with him. And it cuts to accentuate an action. So the cinematography and the directing in that aspect too is just great.
All right, so what are you taking off for?
Take it off for?
What are you taking off for?
So what are the bads? Okay, so I think it's got the Marvel problem going for it. Marvel, except for the TV shows, doesn't have any developed villains. Except for Loki, and the reason Loki worked so well is because they had time to develop him. You knew his motivations, you could actually side with him, even though he was wrong. And this movie doesn't really do that. They do such a good job of developing John Wick as the Baba Yaga of the boogeyman. And it's so great. It's awesome hearing all these stories about this past. But all that said, the bad guys never feel really all that developed. They don't seem to have much motivation. They're just kind of bad, And I know it's in a world where everybody's, they're all villains. But there's got to be more motivation than just, like in this movie, where it's just power.
I think the reason I can't get behind this movie, I think, is because Keanu Reeves' performance was extremely disappointing to me. Every time he spoke, I wanted to fast forward in the theater because I just didn't appreciate any of his approaches to that character. And also, I think overall the story didn't ever draw me in on an emotional level. The action was great and that was good, but I felt like that couldn't support the amount of violence and the amount of aggression that you were supposed to feel toward the bad guys and supposed to feel toward what was going on. And so I just feel like the movie was lazy in the sense of its storytelling, and that for me made it hard to enjoy all the other things that were going on. Okay, so now's come the time. I'll rate first. I know that we're going to have some different opinions here, so the average will be interesting. I can't quite fully recommend this movie. It's a maybe watch for me, but I'll give it the positive side. I'm going to go 6.5 on this one. I feel like if I have this much problem with the characters and the story, I can't quite go to recommendation.
You're going to 6.5? Baba Yaga? The boogeyman?
The action is great. The action is fantastic. I can't quite go there. Where are you going?
So, for me, John Wick is an action movie. It says it's going to be an action movie. Its promise is delivered. It is an action movie. So, an action movie for me means that you don't have to have a very strongly developed main character because he's kind of the surrogate for you that you're living through, and you're going to save the day through him. And I think it should have very well developed villains. Now, they don't have that, and I knocked it for that, but they do have a very well-developed world of villains, which I think is so great. And they add some really cool stories to John Wick's character, which makes him this kind of mythological person that's going through this mythological world. And so for all that, and it being an action movie that does exactly what action movies should do, especially in this day and age where you have so many action movies that are just terrible, it's an 8.5 for me. So
all right, that puts it at 7.5 overall for those of you playing at home. I'd call it a symphony of violence. So if you're there for the violence, it's a symphony. And so it does a really good job of that. Well, thank you very much for joining us. If you like everything that you've seen and heard, please follow us and subscribe. We've got Lego Batman coming out, a review of that, as well as a late-night hate watch of The Last Airbender, both of which you definitely need to see.
Definitely. On top of the subscription, please, if you do, and then also please comment. We'd love to talk with you guys and interact about your thoughts on the film and every film that we review and the ones that we do hate watches on. So, this is